So hi, very good afternoon to all of you, and sorry for this delay, that 5-6 minute delay which was there. It was because of that some technical issues, but now it has been resolved. So let's begin with the today's class, and today is the third class. So I hope uh, that okay. So I thought that I have completed the later Mughals. So we have seen till Jahandar Shah only. So today we'll be further talking about the later Mughal emperors, and then uh, after the later Mughal emperors, the very important topic from this, but the very important section from this topic is the decline of the Mughals. So hopefully we'll be able to complete this topic today. And then after completing this topic, so I don't know that how many classes I do have in the next week. If at all I will be having any class, or if at all I'll not be having any class or next week, so the topic would be the Carnatic, that Anglo-French rivalry that we'll be looking in the fourth class. So let's begin with that without wasting time. Let's begin with the last topic. So last topic was Jahandar Shah. So after Jahandar Shah, we haven't discussed anything. So let's begin with the Farrukhsiyar. So the next Mughal emperor, Farrukhsiyar. And Farrukhsiyar came to power in 1713 to 1719. So 1713 to 1719 he was there, and in fact that he came to power by assassinating the Jahandar Shah. And if I haven't mentioned this hierarchy in the Mughal court, so before moving into the Farrukhsiyar, let me tell you something that the hierarchy in the Mughal court, that who were at the topmost position, and then after who followed. So please look at this before talking about this particular Farrukhsiyar or any other Mughal ruler. So look at this one. So when we talk about the structure, that hierarchical structure, hierarchy in Mughal court, so the topmost position, obviously it would be king. Then after the king, the next important position was the wazir. Wazir was the prime minister, that he was the most important minister. So wazir, and then after the wazir, then is the turn for the nobility. So then is the turn for the nobility. So nobility. So king, wazir, nobility. And when it comes to nobility, I came across in one class, I came across one question. So earlier I thought that how come you are not knowing who is noble? But since it was the query of 4 or 5 students, so here also again before you ask, I will mention that what is nobility. It's just like that any governmental system, that we have a prime minister, we have a president, then and then there are the ministers. So you can consider them as a type of a ministers. Then, and who are the ministers or member of parliamentarians? They have a stake. They are the stakeholders in the decision making process. Then, so decision making process. So they are also the decision makers. Moreover, if you look at that, if you have seen those old Hindi mythological series like Mahabharata, Ramayana or any other, so you must have seen that there is a king who is sitting in the middle of the court, and then also that there are chairs let down on the downside, and then some courtiers are there. So these courtiers are what? They are the nobility. Nobility or darbari. In Hindi, what you say, darbari. So they are the darbaris or the nobility. So basically, they are the one of the decision makers. Then so decision makers. So this nobility, when it comes to the nobility, so here in this nobility, there were many descents. Then means that this nobility was not homogeneous, but this nobility included wide variety of the people, and not only wide variety of the people from different origins. So let me write it over here, and I'll be using this information when I'll be talking about the decline of the Mughals. So very first one, that this nobility, so there was Iranian origin people, Iranians. Then you also call them Persian. So in Iranian or Persian. Then we have Turkish origin nobles. So Turkish, they were termed as Turani. Then there is Afghan origin nobles. Afghan origin nobles. and many times Afghans were referred as Durrani. And then the last one, the Indian origin nobles, which we call Hindustani. So Indian origin nobles, which we call Hindustani. So these were the four types of the nobility that for as far as the descent is concerned. So Iranian nobles were there in the Mughal court, Turkish nobles were there, Afghan nobles were there, and Indian origin nobles, Hindustani. So these type of nobles were there. Now, when we were talking about this particular person, Jahandar Shah, so the administration was virtually in the hands of the noble or the wazir, that was Zulfikar Khan. So Zulfikar Khan was an Iranian noble. He was an Iranian noble. Now at this point of time, when Farrukhsiyar is going to come to power, he also came to power with the support of one of the very powerful noble of that time, and that powerful noble was Sayyid brothers. Then, so Sayyid brothers were the powerful noble, and these Sayyid brothers at this point of time, they were the one who were responsible for Farrukhsiyar ascendance to the throne, and they were Hindustani nobles. So they were Hindustani, means that Indian origin noble. Moreover, one thing you need to understand, the subjective behavior of the humans. Then obviously that this was the most important post after the king. That king, and particularly in the later Mughal period, most of the time that king was just symbolic. He was involved in the physical pleasure, physical activity. Not physical activity is a different thing, physical pleasure. Then so physical activity would be the sport. So he was involved in the physical pleasure, and he was not at all looking at the administration. So in fact that all the power was concentrated in the hand of the wazir. So wazir was the very important position. So in these all groups there was a competition between these all groups, that there would be person from theirs group who will become the wazir. Then so whenever earlier Iranian group was the wazir, now there is a Hindustani group from which the wazir is going to come to picture. Then so this friction is going to be there, friction and competition is there among the nobility. Then so friction and competition is there. I'll be using this information in the decline of the Mughals. Then so Sayyid brothers, with their help, Hindustani, and they were Hindustani origin nobles. So Farrukhsiyar came to power, and these Sayyid brothers, they were Abdullah Khan and Hassan Ali. Then so Abdullah Khan and Hassan Ali, so they were the two nobles. So when they came, that Farrukhsiyar came to power, so as a token, token of the that their gratitude, that this Abdullah Khan was appointed as wazir and Hassan Ali as Mir Baksi. So Mir Baksi. So Mir Baksi, meaning of this word, wazir is the prime minister and Mir Baksi is the treasurer. Then, so please write Farrukhsiyar as a heading, and then you mention. So I hope that you have written this hierarchy also. We'll be using this later also. So you write, he came to power with the support of Sayyid brothers. He came to power with the support of Sayyid brothers. Sayyid brothers. Then further you write Abdullah Khan and Hassan Ali. Then further you write Abdullah Khan and Hassan Ali. As a token of gratitude, Abdullah was appointed wazir. As a token of gratitude, Abdullah was appointed wazir, and Hassan Ali Mir Baksi. Then you write it is self-explanatory only, so please mention Farrukhsiyar was incapable. And influenced by flatterers. Farrukhsiyar was incapable and influenced by flatterers. So this is not something new which I am telling you. That in the beginning of the class, that later Mughals only, I said to you that near about 90% of the Mughal rulers, they are like the same. and not the Mughal rulers who were there till 1707, after 1707. Then, so they're like the same. So since he was incapable and also influenced by the flatterer, so it was easy for the Sayyid brothers to took full control of the administration. Moreover, since Sayyid brothers are Hindustani origin, so obviously they have a soft corner for the Indian people, that Indian origin people, be it Hindu, be it Muslims, be it any religion. Then for that sake, so they were little soft towards the Indian people, and at this point of time when they came to power, so they started to associate Hindu chiefs into the administration and governance. Then so at their point of time, the number of the Hindu chiefs and Hindu people increased in the administration and governance in the Mughal court. So they started to kind of incorporate these people. Moreover, they also abolished one of the very discriminatory tax at this point of time, pilgrimage tax. Basically, what was this pilgrimage tax? That suppose a Hindu is going to Vaishno Devi, so then he was charged a pilgrimage tax. Then a Hindu is going to the Sabrimala. So Sabrimala, Tirupati. So then you are charged a pilgrimage tax, that you are going to the these places, so you are charged with the pilgrimage tax. Then so this was abolished by Sayyid brothers. But since they were ameliorative towards the caste Hindus, but they were not ameliorative towards the Sikh. So they were not ameliorative towards the Sikh, because Sikh people at this point of time, they were not letting their guard down against the Mughals. So when they were not letting their guards down, or they kind of lit their spirit of the revolt against the Mughals, so obviously that Sayyid brothers, they are not going to spare them. And as such, the Sikh leader Banda Bahadur, he was captured from the Gurdaspur, and later on he was executed in Delhi. So though they were soft towards the other people, but not towards the Sikh. So please write that you have mentioned Farrukhsiyar was incapable and influenced by flatterers. After that you write, taking advantage of this, Sayyid brothers took full control of administration. Sayyid brothers took full control of administration. Full stop. Full control of administration. Then after full stop, you change paragraph, and then you write, they adopted the policy of religious tolerance. They adopted the policy of religious tolerance and associated Hindu chiefs and nobles in governance. Associated Hindu chiefs and nobles in governance. Hindu chiefs and nobles in governance. Full stop. They also abolished Hindu chiefs and nobles in governance. Full stop. Then you write, they also abolished pilgrimage tax. They also abolished pilgrimage tax. Full stop. During their tenure, Sikh leader Banda Bahadur, was taken prisoner from Gurdaspur, and executed at Delhi. Then, now listen. One very important event happened at the time of the Farrukhsiyar. So what was this very important incident or very important such policy measure which was taken by the Farrukhsiyar? And there's a background of this particular policy measure. Its relation is there with the British East India Company. So Farrukhsiyar, he was suffering from some kind of disease then, and that disease was incurable, by that it was not kind of that there was no solution among the physicians who were there in his own court. So they were not able to cure Farrukhsiyar from that particular disease. Then Farrukhsiyar came to know that in British East India Company there is a very famous physician and his name was William Hamilton. So he could be of some help. So William Hamilton, he came to the court of the Farrukhsiyar, and William Hamilton, he did the kind of that surgery or whatever that he cured the disease of the Farrukhsiyar. So obviously if a person is suffering from a disease from long time and then after he is cured, so obviously he is taking a sigh of relief, and after taking a sigh of relief he is also very grateful to the person because of whom he is relieved. So then he that at this point of time, as a token of gratitude, he gave royal farman to the British East India Company. So this British East India Company's royal farman, so some of the concessions were given, some concessions were given to the British East India Company, and though these concessions which were given, the three concessions which I am going to mention to you in the royal farman of 1717, so not all of them were in the function at that point of time. There was some resistance also, but uh, two of the provisions were fully functional. So listen, that this was the background. That's why in 1717 Farrukhsiyar gave the royal farman to the British East India Company. The very first provision of the royal farman, and it had far reaching impact on the Britishers in a positive fashion for the Britishers. Then so the company, the British East India Company and their presence at this point of time, 1707. So if you look at the very first chapter in which we mentioned that which all places they were present. So they were present in Bengal, that like Calcutta, their presence was there. They were also present in the Madras then, and they were also present in the Bombay. So these all areas were the strongholds of the Britishers, where their trading presences were there. So the Mughal Emperor Farrukhsiyar, he said that Britishers, they are permitted to carry on trade free of customs duty in these three places: Bombay, Bengal, and Madras. Then so Bombay, Bengal, Madras, that they were free to that they were allowed to, permitted to carry on trade without paying any customs duty. So this was permitted. Then second thing that he said, that the company was also permitted to mint its own coin in Bengal, then, or particularly in Calcutta. So to mint its own coin and fortify Calcutta. So to mint its own coin and fortify Calcutta, this is something which was not liked by the then governor of the Bengal. Then governor of the Bengal was the Murshid Quli Khan, then who was a Mughal noble, and Bengal was the Mughal area. So he was governor of the Bengal, so it was not liked by him and he didn't allow it. Then so though the emperor has given this permission, but he didn't allow it. Then another thing, that third provision of the royal farman was the company servants were also permitted. Listen, the company servants were also permitted to carry out private trade. Then so to carry out private trade, but these servants, if they are doing the private trade, they needed to pay same kind of tax which Indian merchants were paying. Then so if a company servant is indulged in private trade, so then he will be paying the same kind of duties which Indian merchants are paying. But if the company is that company's trade is there, so company is exempted from the customs duty. But this provision whereby the company individuals, company servants, they were allowed to do the private trade and they needed to pay the same kind of tax as the Indian merchant, they misused it. Then this provision was one of the heavily misused provision. Then, and I will tell you later, I will explain you with some examples itself that how they were misusing. So please write as a heading Royal Farman of 1717. Royal Farman of 1717. Then you write one British physician, one British physician one British physician, William Hamilton, William Hamilton, William Hamilton, cured Farrukhsiyar, cured Farrukhsiyar, Farrukhsiyar, who was suffering from a disease, who was suffering from a disease, who was suffering from a disease. Full stop. As a token of gratitude, as a token of gratitude, he gave royal firman to the company. He gave royal firman to the company. Then royal firman to the company. Then further you mention provisions you write. So first provision you write. The company was permitted to carry on trade in Bengal. The company was permitted to carry on trade in Bengal, Bombay and Madras, Bengal, Bombay and Madras, free of customs duty. Free of customs duty. Then second provision you write. The company was also permitted to mint its own coin, mint its own coin and further fortify Calcutta. To mint its own coin and further fortify Calcutta. Fortify Calcutta. Then third you write, further fortify Calcutta. The company servants were also permitted to carry out private trade. The company servants were also permitted to carry out private trade, but they were required to pay the same tax as Indian merchants. To pay the same tax as Indian merchants. To pay the same tax as Indian merchants. Full stop. Then further you mention, in brackets you mention, it was the most misused provision. It was the most misused provision by the company servants. Now let me explain this last part. Suppose that there is this organization, then, and I'm taking the example of the Vision IAS only. So this is our organization and I'm an employee of the Vision IAS. Then, so I am an employee of the Vision IAS and then my job is to teach history over here. And then after, so that I'm doing. Then what happens that in my individual capacity, what I have done, that I have written one book with some other publication. So suppose that I have collaborated with the Tata McGraw-Hill's and I have written a book on the modern Indian history. So modern Indian history. So what happens, and Vision IAS has its own separate notes that material which is given to you. So at this platform of the Vision IAS, I'm teaching you the history and then I'm saying you that when you are asking for the reference book, so I'm saying you that you can buy this book which is written by me. Then TMH publication, maybe book would be very good. Then, but otherwise I don't have any right to sell my own book with the platform of the Vision IAS, which has its own book also. Okay? So which has its own book also. So I can sell my book outside this institute. I can promote my book outside the institute, but I have no right to promote it over here. Then, so this is what was the private trade. That British East India Company, they have their own products. And the company individuals, what they were doing, that how they were misusing, this part I'm telling you. So how they were misusing, so many a times that, and if there was a benefit of this also, that if I have a product, that suppose there's a wahi kitab ho gayi. So I have this product, that book. So I'm saying that no, it is sanctioned by the Vision IS. You can buy this one. Okay? So it means that I will not be required to pay the taxes that Indian merchants were paying. So when it is your individual product and you are saying that it is a company's product, so obviously you are not paying the taxes and then you are evading the tax. So that's how they were selling, the company individuals, they were selling their own private goods in the name of the company, and that's how they were evading the taxes then. So that's how they were misusing this provision. So I hope with this particular comparison you must have understood how they were misusing it. So now listen, that this Farrukhsiyar, as I said to you, that he was very weak on ears. Then, so very weak on ears, that if some of the flatterers say something to him, so he easily believed. Then, but for the first time, that he was seeing it in a real fashion, that what Sayyid brothers are doing, that Sayyid brothers were completely controlling the administration. Then, so completely controlling the administration. So what that this particular Farrukhsiyar, what he started to do, that he started to conspire against the Sayyid brothers. He wanted to get rid of them. So when he started to conspire against them, Sayyid brothers got to know this particular thing, and then what they did was something which has not happened in the later Mughal history. So what they did, that with the help of the Maratha Peshwa, Balaji Vishwanath, with the help of the Balaji Vishwanath, Sayyid brothers, what they did, they dethroned Farrukhsiyar. Not only dethroned, they blinded him and then after brutally murdered him. Then, so first they dethroned Farrukhsiyar, blinded him and brutally murdered him. Then, so after this incident, there was a environment of terror in the Mughal court. So there was an environment of terror in the Mughal court. Everybody was terrified that this is the fate of the Mughal emperor and done by the nobles only. And the way they dethroned the person and the way they executed him, so they created a kind of terror. And then after the demise of the Farrukhsiyar, there were two token rulers, you can say that puppet rulers kind of, Rafiud Dawla, Rafiud Darjat, and both of them within 2-3 months only they died. Then because of the dysentery, pata nahi kya kha ke aaye the. So because of the dysentery, both of them died. So they are not to be mentioned over here. I just quoted only as a kind of that completion of the story. So you don't need to write. So the next emperor after the death of these two short-term kings, and they all were coming with the support of the Sayyid brothers. So now the stable one came to power and his name was Muhammad Shah, and popularly known as Rangila. We will talk about him, but first you write this last incident related to Farrukhsiyar. So you write, when Farrukhsiyar was conspiring, conspiring to get rid of, Sayyid brothers, they proved to be very clever. They proved to be very clever for him. They proved to be very clever for him. And with the help of Peshwa, Balaji Vishwanath, they dethroned the emperor. Blinded him and killed him. So blinded him and killed him. So this is what happened to the this Peshwa, sorry, not Peshwa, this Farrukhsiyar emperor. So now Muhammad Shah is going to come to power. Listen about this particular person. So please write his name first. So mention Muhammad Shah. He was from 1719 to 48. So 1719 to 48, Muhammad Shah. Now, Muhammad Shah came to power, and after coming to power, so he was already aware of the power of the Sayyid brothers. Then, and moreover, the other noble groups that you have written over here. So other noble groups, they were also wary of the intentions of the Sayyid brothers. Then, so nobody was feeling secured and in comfort at the time of the Sayyid brothers. Then, so Sayyid brothers, so everybody wanted to get rid of the Sayyid brothers. So Muhammad Shah, the new emperor, he wanted to get rid of the Sayyid brothers, and there was one more noble. Then, so one more noble, let me tell you. So this Turkish group. Now the time is there for the Turkish group. So from this Turkish group, there was this noble. His name was Chinkilich Khan. Chinkilich Khan, or popularly known as Asaf Jah. So popularly known as Asaf Jah. So he was a powerful noble of the Turkish group. With his support, Muhammad Shah finally he succeeded in getting rid of the Sayyid brothers by 1720. So these brothers, in the separate incidents, they were captured and executed. They were killed. So finally that Muhammad Shah got rid of the Sayyid brothers. Then, because Sayyid brothers till this point of time, they have become very brutal, and not just the brutal, but their policies were like that, creating the reign of terror. So it was very much required that this reign of terror must be removed from the Mughal court. Then, so must be removed from the Mughal court. So with the support of the Turkish noble, Chinkilich Khan, popularly known as Asaf Jah, Muhammad Shah Rangila, was successful. Now listen, that he was successful, and at this point of time, when Asaf Jah was performing this act, so he was supported by all the group of the nobles. All the nobles who were wary of the intentions of the Sayyid brothers. So majority of the people, they supported Asaf Jah. So this was a time that earlier there was a competition between them, but now they are trying to support the Asaf Jah. And Asaf Jah himself was a very capable person. Then, so Asaf Jah himself was a very capable person. And then he also wanted to remove the corruption, or at least to reduce the corruption from the Mughal administration. So he wanted to reform the Mughal administration, but in this he needed the support of the Mughal emperor. But Mughal emperor, though this was the moment of the revival of the glory of the Mughals under the leadership of the Chinkilich Khan or Asaf Jah, but the emperor, Mughal emperor, this particular Muhammad Shah, he was not the man of moment. Then he was not the man of the moment. Moreover, this person all the time, he was indulged in pleasure. In fact, it is told about that, it is said about him that he was always indulged in wine and women. And it was always like that he was always holding a glass of the wine, and it was never emptied. Even if it is getting emptied, so somebody was, and you know that you must have seen in the movies and then serials that Kaniz. So Kaniz ek piche piche ghumti thi, Kaniz thoda sa sarab dal diya, thodi wine dal diya. Then, so his cup was same is there with that one more Mughal emperor. I'll tell you later when we'll be talking about him. That is in the medieval. So he was indulged in this wine and women, and he has nothing to do with the administration. So obviously at this point of time, so this noble started to get frustrated. Asaf Jah also started to get frustrated with the attitude of the Mughal emperor, and the irreversible decline of the Mughal empire started from the time of the Muhammad Shah. And these nobles, that the powerful nobles, they started to carve out semi-independent autonomous territories for themselves. So as such, that in 1717 itself, when Farrukhsiyar was like that, so governor of the Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan, he has already created a semi-independent territory of the Bengal. In the time of the Muhammad Shah, two more were created. One was the Awadh by Sadat Khan in 1722, and then in 1724, Chinkilich Khan or Asaf Jah, he created Hyderabad. Means that he created this semi-independent autonomous territory of Hyderabad. and he was the nobility of the Mughals. Then, so the breakup of the Mughal Empire started from this point of time. So breakup of the Mughal Empire started from this time. There is a one more incident, very important incident that we need to talk about, but first you write this much. So you mentioned, Abhishek, meanwhile, if there is any question, so you can send to me. Then, so a powerful group of noble, a powerful group of noble headed by, you can write, for one time you can write his name Chinkilij Khan or Asaf Jah. Then, so you write this name for one time and later on you can only use Asaf Jah. So powerful group of noble headed by Chinkilij Khan or Asaf Jah, Chinkilij Khan or Asaf Jah were wary of the growing power of Sayyid brothers. Were wary of the growing power of Sayyid brothers. Full stop. Muhammad Shah, thanks Abhishek. So Muhammad Shah also wanted to free himself. Muhammad Shah also wanted to free himself from the control of Sayyid brothers. From the control of Sayyid brothers, and succeeded in killing them by 1720 with the help of Asaf Jah. With the help of Asaf Jah. With the help of Asaf Jah. After full stop, you mention, it was a chance. You can change paragraph. So, mention, it was a chance to save the Mughal Empire. It was a chance to save the Mughal Empire, but Muhammad Shah was not the man of the moment. But Muhammad Shah was not the man of moment. Then, man of the moment, full stop. He was weak-minded and frivolous. He was weak-minded and frivolous. He was weak-minded and frivolous. He was often referred as Rangila. He was often referred as Rangila since he was indulged in wine and women. He was indulged in wine and women. I will share one such thing. I think there are so many modern batches are going together. So there is one batch of yours, there is a RB6 and there is a that RB9, RB10, RB7, RB8. So many a times I just forget that what I have said in the other batch. It seems like to me that I have said in your batch. So let me share. If it is a repetition, so bear with the same. But I will quote this one, that I hope that I haven't said this quote in your class. So I will tell you one incident from there was this very famous ruler of Jaipur, and his name was the Raja Jai Singh. And you know it, that Jaipur is named after the Raja Jai Singh. So Raja Jai Singh is that personality, he was personality to be mentioned and to be that celebrated in the history. But you know that every person has their phases in their life, and that there are some phases where person is all after the kind of love and then indulge in the physical activity. So physical pleasure activity. And for Raja Jai Singh, it was his marriage. Then, so his marriage happened, and then all the time that he was not at all concerned about that, what is happening in the court, and then he was indulged in the pleasure. Then, so you know that very first year of the marriage, this happens like so. That very first year of the marriage, there is so much of romanticism in the marriage that बहुत बार घर वाले बोलते हैं कि लड़का शादी होते ही बदल गया, ठीक है? So this is what they say. So this is what was happening with the Raja Jai Singh. So at this point of time, one of the very famous poet, he wrote about him. So he wrote that is in the Awadhi Hindi. So let me tell you. So what he wrote that nahi parag nahi madhur madhu, nahi vikas ehi kaal. Then nahi parag nahi madhur madhu, nahi vikas ehi kaal. Ali kali hi te bandhiyo, aage kaun hawal. So let me explain it. So what is the meaning of this word? That nahi parag. Nahi madhur madhu, nahi vikas ehi kaal. Means that there is no development. Then there is no development at this point of time. That no such harmony is there. Then so no such harmony is there. There is no development. Then so there is no development. And why this is happening? Because Ali Kali hi te bandhiyo, means that all the time you are indulged in the pleasure. So aage kaun hawal, means that Bhagwan hi malik hai is vikas ka. Then so this is that God is the that God will see that what will happen to the development. So this is what he said, and Raja Jai Singh took note of this one. Then so he was a serious person. He was open to the criticism. Then so. There was one more quote of the Kabir which I'll quote here. Nindak niyare rakhiye. Means that it's always helpful for you that if you have the people who can criticize you constructively, criticize negatively nahi, criticize constructively. Then so Raja Jai Singh was like that, and he remember that he paid heed to the suggestion of his own poet Bihari, and then he started to focus on the administration. But it was not the case of the Mughal Empire. There was nobody like to comment upon them, and moreover, if at all commenting, somebody is commenting, so ये लोग तो एक हम वो हिंदी में एक बात बोलते हैं, एक कान से सुनते हैं दूसरे से निकाल देते हैं, ये तो सुनते भी नहीं थे, so निकालेंगे कहाँ से? So that was the case with the Muhammad Shah Rangila. Then so Muhammad Shah Rangila. So now you write that after this, during his tenure, an irreversible decline of Mughal Empire initiated. And it started to break up. It started to break up. Full stop. Then you mention powerful nobles started to carve out semi-independent autonomous states for themselves. So semi-independent autonomous states for themselves. So please mention this which I am writing on the board. So please mention these states. So the very first state I am mentioning is the Bengal. So though the Bengal happened little bit earlier, ठीक है? Muhammad Shah से थोड़ा सा पहले हो गया था, but we are writing over here only. So by Murshid Quli Khan, and in 1717, at the time of the Farrukhsiyar, he revolted. He resisted. I will not say revolted. He resisted. Then Awadh by Sadat Khan. And 1722. And then is the Hyderabad. So Hyderabad, Murshid Quli Khan, that's Chin Kilij Khan. And I will write another name. Chin Kilij Khan to tum log bahut time se likh rahe ho. I will write his full name with which he was popularly known. Nizam ul Mulk Asaf Jah. Nizam ul Mulk Asaf Jah. In brackets you can write the old name Kilij Khan, Chin Kilij Khan. Nizamul Mulk Asaf Jah. Now listen. So now listen. After writing this, in 1739, so in 1739, there was invasion. And this invasion was led by Nadir Shah of Persia. So Nadir Shah of Persia, that he invaded Mughal India in 1739, and there was this Battle of Karnal in 1739. In this Battle of Karnal, Mughal army was thoroughly defeated, and moreover, not only thoroughly defeated, but this Nadir Shah of Persia, to avenge the killing of handful of his soldiers. So Nadir Shah of Persia, to avenge the killing of handful of his soldiers, did a terrible massacre in Delhi. Did a terrible massacre in Delhi, and not only he did a terrible massacre, but he also looted Delhi, and some of the very precious objects in the Mughal kingdom, which was there at this point of time, they were taken away as the loot material, and this included one very famous peacock throne of the Shah Jahan, and another was the Kohinoor diamond. So Kohinoor diamond is still kind of a subject or artifact of the debate. Very often we have seen that it is there in the news. So let me tell you a little bit about this Kohinoor diamond. We'll be talking about this in the medieval, but this Kohinoor diamond was originally the property of the Kakatiya dynasty. So originally it was the property of the Kakatiya dynasty of the Andhra Telangana, and this Kakatiya dynasty ruler, when this Kakatiya was invaded by Alauddin Khilji, so as a mark of peace that his area must not be invaded, the Kakatiya ruler Pratap Rudradev, he gifted this Kohinoor to the Alauddin Khilji, and Alauddin Khilji respected. There was one good thing about him, that Alauddin Khilji, that when he has said he will not raid, so he did not raid it. And there was an annual tribute from the Kakatiya ruler. So this was a gift to Alauddin Khilji. Then after Alauddin Khilji, that after dynasty is getting changed in the medieval period. So these dynasties were the one who were possessing the Kohinoor. Finally, it was looted by the Nadir Shah of Persia. And what is the present day situation of this Kohinoor diamond? It is in the London. Then it is in the London Museum. Finally, the biggest looteras of the world, Britishers, looted it. And even when they pose as the very generous people, civilized people, they don't have this much of the sense that they must return it to India. Yes, obviously you have looted it from India, you must return it to India. And this particular diamond must adorn the Indian Museum, not the London Museum. Let's get back to our course. So in 1939, that Nadir Shah of Persia looted Delhi. So please write, in 1939, Nadir Shah of Persia. In 1939, Nadir Shah of Persia defeated Mughals in Battle of Karnal. Defeated Mughals in Battle of Karnal. Then further you mention in Battle of Karnal, to avenge killing of handful of his soldiers, he did a terrible massacre in the imperial city of Delhi. He did a terrible massacre in the imperial city of Delhi. Full stop. He also looted the famous peacock throne of Shah Jahan. He also looted the famous peacock throne of Shah Jahan, and and the Kohinoor diamond, and the Kohinoor diamond. Kohinoor diamond. Now listen. So after Nadir Shah went back, and after the death of the Nadir Shah, there was the successor of the Nadir Shah. This successor's name was the Ahmad Shah Abdali. Ahmad Shah Abdali, who was the successor of the Nadir Shah of the Persia, uh, in between 1748 to 1767, he did 7 invasions in India. And he did 7 invasions in India. And if Nadir Shah looted Delhi, so then uh, Ahmad Shah Abdali bleeded Delhi. So bleeded Delhi and deprived Delhi of its all the wealth. So moreover, what Nadir Shah did, that only looted Delhi, but what Abdali did, that also defeated the most important and very strong regional power of India, Marathas. So we'll be looking at the episode of the 1761 third battle of Panipat in the Maratha episode. Here I will only be mentioning, okay? जैसे later Mughals में I'll be mentioning about the battle of Buxar also, battle of Palasi also, but यहाँ पे detail में नहीं होगा, ठीक है? Because these we are going to see in a very detailed fashion in the Bengal. So Buxar and battle of Palasi in Bengal and third battle of Panipat will be looking with all the details in Maratha episode. So please mention after this one. So after the death of Nadir Shah, his successor Ahmad Shah Abdali, invaded and plundered Mughal Empire, 7 times between 1748 to 1767. Between 1748 to 1767. And since the 48 is the last year of the reign of the Muhammad Shah Rangila, so the very first invasion happened at the time of the Muhammad Shah Rangila. Now, so it is a coincidence, listen, that it is a coincidence that the next ruler who is going to come to power, that Mughal ruler who is going to come to power, his name is also similar to the Abdali, Ahmad Shah. So the first name. So Ahmad Shah, who was the next ruler from 48 to 54. So 48 to 54. And we don't need to talk much about this person because like all the other Mughal rulers, he was also a weak person. But why I'm mentioning this person, one important thing happened. Then what was this important thing? That during the tenure of the Ahmad Shah, Abdali invaded 2 times in 1749 and 1752. And as such, this Mughal emperor, he surrendered Punjab and Multan to Abdali. So he surrendered Punjab and Multan to Abdali. And actually, the bone of contention between the Maratha and Abdali would be this Punjab and Multan only. I will talk about this later, but first you write. So you mention this name only, Ahmad Shah. Abdali hata do usme se, and that's the name of the Mughal ruler. So 1748 to 54. 1748 to 54. Please write only few words about him. So mention that during his tenure, Abdali invaded twice. In 1749, invaded twice in 1749 and 1752. As such, Mughal emperor, as such, Mughal emperor surrendered Multan and Punjab to Abdali. Surrendered Multan and Punjab to Abdali. Then, now listen. So after this person, another ruler who came to power, Alamgir II. Alamgir II. So he is coming to power 1754 to 59. 1754 to 59. Now listen. So again, what we need to mention in the reign of the Alamgir II, Abdali's invasion is continuing. Then that's a one other thing. Then, but what is important over here, that when Abdali was invading over here, and Abdali, his origin was the Afghanistani. Then, so he was a Afghan person. So whenever he was invading India, so many Afghans, they came to Delhi and they started residing in Delhi. Then, so these Afghans were the Rohillas and then other Afghan tribes. So Rohillas and other Afghan tribes. So at this point of time, during the tenure of the Alamgir II, Marathas for the first time that they invaded Delhi, and not to loot the Mughal emperor, not to loot the Mughal emperor, but to drive out Afghans and Rohillas from Delhi. But to drive out Afghans and Rohillas from Delhi, and moreover, Marathas at this point of time during this tenure, they captured Punjab and Lahore. So Lahore and Punjab they captured. Now, earlier you have seen during the tenure of the Ahmad Shah that Punjab and Multan is given to the Abdali. Now at this point of time, the area which is controlled by the Abdali, now it is coming under the lap of the Marathas. This is what is the reason of the 1761 Third Battle of the Panipat. So please write, during this time, Marathas invaded Delhi to drive out Afghans and Rohillas. And such was the influence of this Rohillas that there is a place over here in Delhi, very close to our own center. This is a railway station, Sarai Rohilla. So basically, this was the place where these Rohillas, Afghani origin people were living. And so, Rohilla, then you write Rohillas. Marathas occupied Lahore and Punjab. Marathas occupied Lahore and Punjab. Lahore and Punjab. Then for 1 year, let me write. So let's complete the overall succession. Give me a minute. So there was this Mughal emperor for 1 year. His name was Shah Jahan III. You don't need to go beyond this, 1759 to 60. Now, the person who we are going to talk about is Shah Alam II. Shah Alam II, 1760 to 1806. 1806. So now listen, that this person, when Shah Alam II is going to come to the, that he is going to become the next Mughal emperor. So at this point of time, there was a good camaraderie between the Marathas and the Mughal emperor Shah Alam. So there was a good chemistry between them, that Mughal emperor Shah Alam and then also the Marathas. So at this point of time, he is ascending the throne not with the support of those all nobles and everybody, but with the support of the Marathas. So with the support of the Marathas, and who was this Maratha Sardar who was important in the rise of the Shah Alam? So there are two, but first I'll mention that person who was responsible for his elevation, his name was Sadasiv Rao Bhau. Sadasiv Rao Bhau. So he came to support with the, he came to power with the support of this one. And if you have seen this movie which was recently released, Panipat, so the character which was played by Arjun Kapoor, that is Sadasiv Rao Bhau. So uh, Shah Alam II came to power. And what about the Shah Alam? So Shah Alam, after a very long time, there is a man of ability. There is a man of courage. Then, so he was a man of ability. He was a man of courage. But the problem with the Shah Alam was very simple. What we wrote during the time of the Muhammad Shah Rangila, irreversible decline has happened. Means that Mughal glory is beyond redemption. He cannot do anything even if he wants. Then, so even if he wants, it is beyond redemption. So, though he was a capable person, though he was a very courageous person, then, but at the same point of time, he cannot do anything. Then, so Mughal glory was beyond redemption. So please write. He came to power with the support of Maratha Sadasiv Rao Bhau. Sadasiv Rao Bhau. Full stop. Then you mention Sadasiv Rao Bhau. He was the man of some ability. He was the man of some ability and courage, but the Mughal Empire was now beyond redemption. Mughal Empire was now beyond redemption. So now listen, that during the tenure of this Shah Alam, two very important battles happened. And these battles, in fact, he was party to these battles. So this battle, one was the Battle of Panipat, 1761, in which Sadasiv Rao Bhau was killed. Then, so Battle of Panipat, and second was the Battle of Buxar, in which also Shah Alam was a party. So these two important battles happened, and as I said to you that in 1761, in third Battle of Panipat, Sadasiv Rao Bhau was killed. And moreover, Ahmad Shah Abdali was often invading this area. So what happened that Ahmad Shah Abdali, when in 1761, he defeated the Marathas, and Mughal Emperor Shah Alam was supporting the Marathas. So what he did, that he exiled Mughal Emperor from Delhi. So Abdali exiled Mughal Emperor from Delhi, and Delhi administration was in the hand of the Rohillas. Then, so he gave it to the Rohillas. Then, so in Delhi, the administration was organized by the two Rohilla leaders, Zabita Khan and Nazibullah Khan. And Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, he was exiled to Allahabad. So Mughal Emperor was living in the Allahabad. Those who have been to Allahabad, they must have seen this Akbar's fort close to the Sangam. So this was the area where he was living. So he was living over there. Now, at this point of time, what happens that another Maratha, after the defeats of the Marathas were not going to sit back, and they tried to revive their own glory. And Maratha glory was responsible because of some of the Sardars, but here I will quote just one. His name was Mahatji Scindia. So Mahatji Scindia was one very important personality in the resurrection of the Maratha power. Moreover, he followed what was done by the Sadasiv Rao Bhau. So he continued the support to the Maratha, the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam. So in 1761, this Maratha Sardar, Mahatji Scindia, he invaded Delhi. Then, and at this point of time, again to repel this Rohillas and Afghan. Then, so he repelled these leaders Zabita Khan and Nazibullah Khan from Delhi, and then in 1771 Mughal Emperor Shah Alam again came back to the throne of Delhi. So it was all going well, but what happened in 1888, these Rohillas, they returned back and they blinded Mughal Emperor. Then, so they blinded, though their intention was to kill also, but they were only successful in blinding him. When this news reached to the Mahatji Scindia, this time he made a resolve that this time he will not spare Zabita and Nazibullah, and he hunted them down. So finally, the threat of the Rohilla was over, but Mughal emperor was already blind. So Mughal emperor was already blind, and he continued his rule till 1807, till his death. There is a very famous Urdu expression about the Shah Alam's rule. What I said at that point of time, that Shah Alam, that Mughal glory was beyond redemption. Let me tell you, beyond redemption, why we said so. The direct rule of the Mughal at this point of time, direct control of the Mughals at this point of time, it was limited to a very small area. And this very famous Urdu expression tells all about this. What is this? Listen carefully. Sultanate Shah Alam Ajdilli te Palam. So meaning of this word is that the Sultanate or the empire of the Shah Alam is only, it starts from the old Delhi and ends at the Palam Vihar, which is there in Delhi, which is your airport area. So Sultanate Shah Alam Ajdilli te Palam. So this is what was there about the Mughals. Then, so please write what you have written. Beyond redemption, I think that this is the last word you have written. So you write, his reign witnessed two important battles, that is third battle of Panipat, 1761, and battle of Buxar. Third battle of Panipat and battle of Buxar. Then further write battle of Buxar. When Abdali was leaving Delhi, he exiled Mughal emperor. When Abdali was leaving Delhi, he exiled Mughal emperor Shah Alam from Delhi. Shah Alam from Delhi. Full stop. Meanwhile, power in Delhi was exercised by Rohilla leaders. Power in Delhi was exercised by Rohilla leaders Zabita Khan and Nazibullah Khan. Zabita Khan and Najibullah Khan. Zabita Khan and Najibullah Khan. Change paragraph. In 1771, Maratha Sardar Mahaji Sindhya invaded Delhi, repelled Rohillas, and reinstated Mughal emperor to the throne. Then further you mention Mughal emperor to the throne. Later in 1788, Shah Alam was blinded by Rohilla leader Zabita Khan. Shah Alam was blinded by Rohilla leader Zabita Khan. Full stop. But soon, Mahaji Sindhya hunted down the Rohilla leader hunted down the Rohilla leader and restored the position of Shah Alam II. Restored the position of Shah Alam II. So there is this one part, Battle of Buxar, as I said to you, that we will not be repeating it time and again, but you remember Battle of Buxar. It is a very big episode in the Bengal then, and related to the politics of the Bengal only, in which the party was Shah Alam also. So we'll be mentioning that Battle of Buxar over there in the Bengal. So I'm not unnecessarily keeping it over here so that there must not be repetition. Now, another thing that after the death of this Shah Alam II, there are the last two rulers. One is the Akbar II and then the last one, Bahadur Shah Zafar. So Akbar II, you listen a little bit and then we'll write combinedly both of them. So Akbar II, he came to power in 1806 and he was there till 1837. So it was the Akbar II at his point of time that Raja Ram Mohan Roy, he was the famous social reformer, and in fact it is said about the Ram Mohan Roy, that is the original name, that Raja title to Ram Mohan Roy was given by Akbar II. Then, so given by Akbar II, and moreover, one very important development at this point of time, that in 1835 the English East India Company stopped minting coins in the name of the Mughal emperor. Now you must be having some questions. I can read your mind that your question. So before you could ask, let me address it then, so that you don't need to ask. So first of all, you will be saying that आज ही मैंने पढ़ाया कि कॉइन मिंट नहीं करने दिया बंगाल के नवाब ने, बंगाल के गवर्नर ने, मुर्शीद कुली खान ने. So how come they were minting coin? They were not minting coin in the Bengal. That point of time, when Murshid Quli Khan, what he did, stopped them. But this is what we are talking, 1835. So now Bengal by 1765, it is under the control of the British. So now they are minting coin. This is one explanation. Moreover, they were also minting coin in their other presidencies like the Bombay and Madras. Then, so they were minting it over there, Bombay and Madras. Another thing that what was the tradition in India, so that I need to explain here, that whoever was there in India, and whenever it came to the official currency of the country or coins, so coins were minted with the name of the Mughal emperor. Then that it was symbolic, but it was minted with the name of the Mughal emperor. So in 1835, there is this attempt that now remove the name of the Mughal emperor from the coins. So Britishers have, by the time of the 1835, they have control over, let me tell you which all areas. They have control over Bengal, they have control over Hyderabad, Carnatic, Mysore and Maratha. So almost 65% of area is under their control. So they have all the right to change the policies. So 1835, they stopped minting coins with the name of the Mughal emperor. Then came, after the death of this Akbar II, Bahadur Shah Zafar or Bahadur Shah II, who came to power in 1837, was there till 1857. And Bahadur Shah Zafar was his pen name. You know what is the pen name? That with the pen name, people do write some poetry, people do write book. It's not the original name, but it's the pen name with which they write the book. For example, that one of very famous poet, Firak Gorakhpuri. His original name was some kind of Devaki Nandan or something. But I'm not really knowing that what was his original name, but his original name was something else. Firak Gorakhpuri was the name, which was the pen name. Then, so pen name. So his pen name was the Zafar, but what happened during his tenure, that is something remarkable. So during his tenure, this great revolt of the 1857 happened. Initially, he hesitated in providing the leadership in this revolt, but later on, he gave his consent to provide the leadership to the 1857 revolt. And the outcome of this revolt was that he was jailed, exiled from India to Mandale, Rangoon, then to Rangoon, not Mandale, so to Rangoon in Myanmar, and in Myanmar only he died. And moreover, after the suppression of the 1857 revolt, it was the 1st of November 1858 when officially the Mughal rule came to an end with the declaration of the Queen Victoria of the Britain, and from 1st November 1858 in India, the British Crown rule started. So please mention these two leaders one by one. You write First you write Akbar second. Akbar second. So Akbar second, 1806 to 1837. Mention about him. He gave the title of Raja. He gave the title of Raja to famous social reformer, Ram Mohan Roy. Ram Mohan Roy. Full stop. In 1835, English East India Company stopped minting coins in the name of Mughal emperor. In the name of Mughal emperor. Then the next personality you write Bahadur Shah Zafar. Bahadur Shah second or Bahadur Shah Zafar. Second, also known as Zafar. So please write. During his tenure, mighty revolt of 1857 happened. Mighty revolt of 1857 happened. Full stop. 1857 happened. In legal terms, Mughal rule came to an end. In legal terms, Mughal rule came to an end on 1st of November 1858 with the declaration of Queen Victoria. 1858 with the declaration of Queen Victoria. So this is all about the later Mughals, that their political things associated with them, what kind of developments were there. So now we will look at the most important aspect of the Mughals, and here it is their decline. Then, so from the exam perspective, it is the most important. And for the very first time, here we are going to write that the reasons that we are going to write about the decline of the Mughals. It's a format of your answer, that how you'll be writing answer. Then, so how you'll be writing answer. So let's begin with this topic of the decline of the Mughals. So please write this heading. I'll not be writing on the boards. You can write it. It is very easy. So decline of Mughals. Please mention this one. Decline of Mughals. And I'll give you a few questions then. So in fact that I will be answering this one, but in the question format itself, we will try to understand. So please write this question. To what extent Jagirdari crisis was responsible for the decline of Mughals? To what extent Jagirdari crisis was responsible for the decline of Mughals? Or, and second question, or karke likho, second question, discuss the factors which led to decline of Mughal Empire in India. discuss the factors that led to decline of Mughal Empire in India. Mughal Empire in India. Then, so there are two questions, these two questions. Answer would be the same for both the questions. Then, so what is the very first question? You look at the same. To what extent Jagirdari crisis? So to what extent? Hindi explanation, किस हद तक? Then किस हद तक means that had means that what percentage. Then so is it solely responsible, or is it one of the factor, or are there many factors? So when they ask this kind of question, to what extent this is responsible for this, so it means that it is responsible for some chunk, but the other chunk there are other factors also. Then which is mentioned in the second question, that very simple and straightforward question, discuss the factors that led to the decline of the Mughal Empire. Then so answer would be the same, that in the very first one, very first question, that they have asked particularly Jagirdari crisis, so you'll be writing Jagirdari crisis is responsible, but at the same point of time you'll be adding it is not the only one which is responsible for the decline of the Mughals, but there are other factors also. So then you are answering other factors also. And in the second question, which is the way the assignment questions are given to you, so that you have enough practice. So in assignment question, suppose that you are given the same question, that discuss the factors that led to the decline of the Mughal Empire. So it is very straightforward. Then so where you need to enumerate all the factors, then all the factors. So let's talk about the factors. So these factors would be political, these factors would be economic, and these factors would be socio-religious, and one more, military. So I'll be talking about them. Then moreover, before moving into the answer of this particular, this decline of the Mughals, I would like to quote something. I would like to differentiate between something, so that this particular Jagirdari crisis which has been mentioned, so you can understand that what this means, or Jagirdar means. So some institution in the Mughal nobility I need to mention. So let me write it over here, that अभी आंसर नहीं लिख रहे हैं, बट उसका बैकग्राउंड हम लोग बना रहे हैं. So when I talked about the nobility, I said to you that what is nobility. ठीक है, तो nobility में, in the Mughal nobility, that the most important people who I'm going to differentiate. So one side is the Jagirdar, then and then there is this Zamindar. So they are all the part of the nobility. Jagirdar is a noble, then also Zamindar would also be the noble. Then, and so what is the difference between them, or what are the similarities between these two? So Jagirdar and Zamindar, you need to understand. First of all, I also quoted some places. I think Bahadur Shah mein quote kiya tha, Mansab system, or he was offered the Mansab status. So Mansab status, and I think I also quoted over there in the English East India Company, William Hawkins, he was also given some Mansab status. So what was this Mansab status? Basically the officer status. So the nobility has this status. Then so the nobility has this status, that Jagirdar is a Mansab, that is a Mansab status, Zamindar is a Mansab status. Then so they are all the parts of the nobility. Now what is the main job of the Jagirdar and what is the main job of the Zamindar, and at the same point of time, not only their jobs, but what are the differences between them. So first of all, the Jagirdar, this is, so you try to understand that his most important function. So Jagirdar, that I'm writing here, let me use another pen. So they were granted land by emperor for their military service, or providing or providing military support to Mughal emperor. Military support to Mughal emperor. Done? So these people were granted land, these people were granted land for their military service or providing military support to the Mughal emperor. Means that they are the one who are maintaining the army. Then so suppose that there is a Jagirdar and there are many Jagirdars, but these all Jagirdars, how they will be functioning? Suppose I am a Jagirdar. So according to my own Mansab rank, suppose I have the Mansab rank of 1000. So accordingly, my responsibilities are decided that how many soldiers I'll be maintaining, how many horses I'll be maintaining. So this way. So according to my rank, I am maintaining this much. Let's suppose my rank is 1000. So as per this rank, I'll be maintaining 1000 soldiers and 500 horses. Then so 500 horses. So accordingly, this particular my rank, I am a Jagirdar, so I have been granted a land. Then so I have been granted a land, and from this land I can generate revenue. Then so अब पूछोगे land से कैसे generate revenue करते हैं? So the land which has been granted to me, so I will be collecting the revenue from that land. Then I'll be collecting the revenue, that is land tax, from this area. So basically this was the that two-way revenue generation could be there. Either you do the agriculture on the same, or it is the villagers who are doing, and then you are collecting the land taxes. So mostly it was the land taxes were collected by them, and from this entire land, and that's how they are generating revenue. This revenue they will be using for their military service, which they are providing to the Mughal emperor. Then so very simple that they were granted land by the Mughal emperor. बस इतना ही इसको याद रख कर लेना, आराम से इससे अच्छे खासे समझ में आ जाएगा. So they were granted land to Mughal emperor by Mughal emperor for their military service or providing military support to the Mughal emperor. Then now the question arises, was this land given to them was permanently given or temporarily? So this land was given to them temporarily. Suppose my rank is 1000. Then मैं एक जागीरदार हूँ. This year I provided 1000 soldiers and 500 horses to the Mughal army. Next year I don't have 1000 soldiers and 500 horses. I'm not providing this support. Suppose that changed to the 500 soldiers and 250. So again the land would be lessened from the one which is granted to me. So it was not permanent. It was according to the contribution of the Jagirdar. Then so this was not a permanent. It was given for the temporary period. So here I'm writing land granted was land grant, you can write land grant was for temporary period. Was for temporary period. Land grant was for temporary period. Then, and moreover, since it is temporary, so it is not hereditary. So land grant was not hereditary. Land grant was not hereditary. Then, so this is the overall function of the Jagirdar. I have written it very clearly on the board. Now let's look at the Zamindar. So Zamindar, first of all, let me write the last things about the Zamindar first. Then, so last things about the Zamindar first. And what is this? That was they given land grant or was any hereditary kind of thing? So Zamindars don't need land grant. They are hereditary owners of the land. Then, so Zamindars were hereditary owners of the land. Then, so basically that this tradition was not new to India. It is continuing from the ancient time. Then that landlords were there, feudal lords were there. So when any such ruler who came to India, that they not only initiated their own method of the land revenue system, but they also continued with this zamindari institution. So some big Hindu landlords are there, then some big Muslim landlords are there, or any other religion landlords are there. So they continued their services. So as such that they were the hereditary landlords. Then so hereditary landlords, so you don't know address ho gaya, that it is not that they are not given the land grant, but they are hereditary landlords. Now, what was their function? So let me write function over here. So मैं इस part को ऊपर लिख दे रहा हूँ, ठीक है? That what is the difference? So zamindars were hereditary feudal lords, and owners of land. Owner of land, then and owner of land. Now, what is their main function? So their main function is also collecting the revenue. So they are also collecting the revenue, but there is an additional function which is added to the zamindar, that they not only collect the revenue, but they also maintained law and order in their area. So they collected revenue, and also maintained law and order in their area. But here they are providing military services, not the law and order correction, but here that law and order responsibility is there with them. So I hope with this expression that now it would be clear that what were their main functions. So Jagirdar and Zamindar, and both were the nobles in the Mughal court. So if at all related to till this point of time, if you have any question, Abhishek, please send that if at all any confusion is there to the students or any question is there. And I really feel good about your batch. Let me share this thing with you guys, that generally that when the offline classes are there, so we see that what is that the batch, and then what is the common intelligence in the batch, that average intelligence in the batch, and their grasping power. So their grasping power, and moreover how well they are understanding. So in your batch, I'm finding somehow that there are some good vibes in your batch. Otherwise, there are some batches where students they have not done their basics. So I hope that you guys have done your basics. So let me see that when we say Alamgir II came to power with his support. Acha, I said this. What kind of support are we mentioning? So Alamgir II. Did I mention Alamgir II? So I mentioned Ahmad Shah and Alamgir II. So see, this is I think that at the time of the Alamgir II, Imadul Mulk was there, who was the grandson of the Nizamul Mulk Asaf Shah. So Imadul Mulk was the very powerful noble. So meaning of this is that what kind of support we are mentioning, that he is the one who would be keeping the protection, and then he is favoring. That's how they are decision makers, that these nobles are the decision makers. So suppose that I am Imadul Mulk, and many other people, I have many people, that if I said that I am the one who is supporting the Alamgir II, so it means that many my followers who are there in the nobility, they are saying that we will be supporting the Alamgir II. So that's how my clout is more. If I am saying that I am supporting him, so obviously that if my clout is more, so that is the meaning of this support. Then, so let's move to the, so I hope you understood this part, that what is there. Now we'll be talking about this particular decline of the Mughals. So let me mention first that when it comes to the decline of the Mughals, so there are various reasons for the decline. It cannot be bracketed into just one reason, which is Jagirdari crisis. So basically the nature of the Jagirdari crisis, it is the economic, then it is economic nature, but there were political causes of the decline of the Mughal, there were economic causes of the decline of the Mughal, and very importantly, socio-religious causes of the decline of the Mughals. And then last one I'll be adding that would be the which cause? So military cause. So these all four factors we'll try to complete today. So I'll give you a break over here, and then after the break we'll continue with the topic. Then, so political causes we will start with. So let's look at this question which has been sent by the Dhananjay. So Jagirdar had their army, so they were more capable in maintaining law and order, but here Jamindars were doing so. Why? So it's a very simple thing, Dhananjay, that you need to understand, that military and police functions are altogether different. If you look at the contemporary times or the current times, so it is always that law and order is maintained by the specialized police force, and then army is the one which is needed for doing the external or wedging fight externally. Then, so wedging fight externally, though many a times they have been called when the internal rebellions are there, internal resistances are there, to suppress it, but they cannot be fully operational force. Moreover, at this point of time, that military services were required since there were monarchies. So rather than the modern nation concept, monarchies needed all the time a specialized forces for their protection, and moreover, these monarchies, they had their own aspirations, ambitions to territorially expand their areas. Then, so territorially expand this area. So once there is a one army or military, so which is meant for this, when you unnecessarily indulge them in the local kind of law and order maintenance, which is petty issues, so their original function of expanding the territory, and expanding the territory is the most important source of the income for the monarchies, so they cannot afford to do so. Moreover, that in this institution of zamindari, feudalism, from very long time they had this experience of maintaining the law and order. So this was according to the Indian usages and customs, that they were maintaining the law and order. And moreover, since they are, most of the zamindars, their origin is the Indian only, so there was more acceptance that what they are saying. And at the same point of time, these zamindars, since they were the local lords of that area, so they have better understanding of the disputes of the people and everything, so they were more effective. So with this thought, they could be more effective. I'm not saying more effective, but they could be more effective. So with this thought, that they are the one who are continuing, and you cannot all of a sudden this is the ruling in one area and ruling in one such particular that territory. It's not as simple as we think that ki koi aaya aur sab log control mein ho gaye. No. It's a very subjective process. Then you have so many things to trade off with the people, and at the same point of time, you need to accommodate and go with them. Even if a very extremist leader is there, he cannot afford to eliminate all the population. Then, so to eliminate all the population, to subjugate all the population, to dominate all the population, he has to take the support of these all. Then, so even in the scenario of the modern times where we are equipped with the modern technology, modern warfare technology, you cannot afford to do so. Then, that there are the section of the people, and section of the people that when they get united, so the people's power is always far, far more than the ruler's power when the people get united. So this threat is not real at this point of time, but it is always real and all point of time. So tinkering with the original institution which was there in India, that is zamindari, that was not in the favor of any of the monarchy. So that's why they continued, as if that they were not like that ki unko man kar raha hai to de diye. This was their compulsion, then that they cannot tinker with the institution of the zamindari. So let's begin with the reasons. So let's begin with these reasons. So very first one I will mention, that is the political causes of the decline. Political causes of decline. Now listen a little bit. That decline of the Mughals, particularly, that it altogether, that it is said that after the death of the Aurangzeb, the decline of the Mughals started. But the factors were already present from the time of the Aurangzeb itself. it is only that when he died, it was very well expressed. So the factors were already present from the time of the Aurangzeb only, and after his death, it was very well manifested. Then, what are the political causes of this particular decline of the Mughals? So listen, first of all, the one which I said to you, that factors were already present from the time of the Aurangzeb. So one factor, that Aurangzeb's expansionist military campaigns, not against all the other areas, but particularly three areas. You listen, understand that these three areas were Bijapur, Golconda and Maratha. Done. So that in this expansionist policy of the Aurangzeb in Bijapur, Golconda and Maratha, large amount of the treasury was emptied, or basically it shaped the vitality of the Mughal empire. Hell lot of expenses were there in these fights, and it's very simple to say that in war there is a one person who is victorious. War is never a victory for anybody. It's a reality that both the parties, it's only a term that this party was a triumphant, but other was the one which was defeated. It's only a term, but both the parties are at loss. Do you think that at this point of time, can we think about the India-China war? And who would be victorious in this one? So generally you will say that China would be victorious in this one and India would be defeated. Then this is general perception. But does it mean that really China would be victorious? No. It will come at the loss of many people. It will come at the loss of diversion of the resources. Then that the resources which can be utilized for the development of the people, for many welfare programs, that would be diverted to the wars. So war is never a win-win situation. Then but at this point of time, when here that Aurangzeb was fighting this war, so here that there was a formidable enemy and it took long time to defeat them, then particularly Bijapur and Golconda, and in Marathwada area that it was also a very long drawn struggle. So it sapped, this long drawn struggle sapped the vitality of the Mughal empire. That's the very first reason. Then the second is that after the death of the Aurangzeb, there was no clear line of succession. So after the death of the Aurangzeb, there was no clear line of succession among the Mughals. For example, that let me tell you that in between the 1707 to 1720, how many rulers came to the throne of the Mughal in that Mughal court? So first was Bahadur Shah, then you had Jahandar Shah, Farrukhsiyar, and then these two names which I mentioned for the time being, Rafiuddaulah, Rafiuddarjat and Farrukhsiyar. So 6 rulers were appointed to the throne within the time of the 13 years only. So you can see that how much instability is there in the Mughal court, because of that there is no clear line of succession, that after the death of the Aurangzeb, who would be the ruler, and after the death of that ruler, who would be the ruler. So the clear line of succession was very much disturbed. And when you will be reading the medieval history, you yourself will come to know that Aurangzeb himself was the result of this. That Aurangzeb was the one who disturbed this clear line of succession. Erstwhile, the other Mughal emperors, they were writing a very clear line of succession. For example, that Shah Jahan, he wrote a clear line of succession that after his death or after him, his son Dara Shikoh would be the next emperor. But Aurangzeb was the one who killed Dara Shikoh to become the emperor. So he was the one who killed the clear line of succession. And then after his death, it became a norm. Then, so there was no clear line of succession. And why I'm talking about a clear line of succession? Because you see that if a ruler is not going to stay for 5-6 years, so how come a development will happen? Har 2 saal pe government change ho jayegi. In case of country also, in case of any democracy, any such country, you can say, you see that if the government changes every year, so there would be no development. So for the development to happen, the parties must have majority. Then so parties must have majority so that they can run 5-year government. Then so political stability is very important for the development. So there was no political stability, and that's why there was this particular decline. There is one more factor I will talk later, but first you write. So political causes, and before political causes you write. So the decline of Mughals began with the death of Aurangzeb. The decline of Mughals began with the death of Aurangzeb in 1707. full stop. Though the factors were already present, from the 17th century itself, full stop. Then you write political causes, and the very first one you write, Aurangzeb's expansionist military campaigns, Aurangzeb's expansionist military campaigns against Bijapur, Golconda and Maratha, against Bijapur, Golconda and Maratha are believed to have sapped, SAPPED, are believed to have sapped vitality of the Mughal Empire. Vitality of Mughal Empire. Vitality of Mughal Empire. Then further you mention, second, after the death of Aurangzeb, there was no clear line of succession. After the death of Aurangzeb, there was no clear line of succession, full stop, clear line of succession, full stop. In between 1707 to 1720, near about 6 rulers were appointed, to the throne of the Mughal, to the Mughal throne. So these two are that simple ones. Then next one, I mentioned the hierarchy in the Mughal court in the beginning of the class itself, that structure which was the king, then wazir, then the nobility, and then the different type of the groups in the nobility. So you know that these nobilities, and I mentioned also that there was always a bitter competition between this nobility, a bitter factionalism was there between this nobility. They all wanted to usurp the power and be in the very important and strong position, that was the position of the wazir. So this infighting and bitter factionalism in the Mughal court also destabilized the Mughal polity, and which is also one of the factor responsible for the decline of the Mughals. Moreover, you have also seen that some of the nobles in the Mughal court, they were so arrogant, and not just arrogant, but they were so aggressive and rash that what they did, that they killed Farrukhsiyar, for example, that this Sayyid brothers, so they killed Farrukhsiyar to create a reign of terror. So they didn't had any respect for the Mughal rule. Then, so this is also what also witness that if one person is doing, so maybe it will promote other people also, that Mughal emperor cannot be respected. Then, so this is what was happening in the court. So you write this as a third reason. Bitter factionalism in the Mughal court, bitter factionalism in the Mughal court was precipitated, so you can cut was. Bitter factionalism in Mughal court precipitated. You don't use two past tenses together. So bitter factionalism precipitated, comma, whereby Irani, Turani, Hindustani and Afghani groups and Afghani groups. Afghani groups started to increase their influence, and later on many of them carved out semi-independent autonomous territories for themselves. Semi-independent autonomous territory for themselves. Semi-independent autonomous territory for themselves. Done? Then, further right. Moreover, many of the nobles were not respectful towards the Mughal emperors. So example, you know it, that's Sayyid brothers. So this is about the political causes. Now let's move to the economic causes. And in this economic causes, basically the question that you have written, to what extent the Jagirdari crisis was responsible for the decline of the Mughal. So the economic cause is the Jagirdari crisis. So I will be explaining it in a better fashion. So you write economic causes of decline. Economic causes of decline. And here only in the economic causes itself, you will be writing Jagirdari crisis. So let me tell you that what is this Jagirdari crisis and few other things related to. Suppose इस बात को पहले ही समझ लो that suppose that this is that Mughal kingdom is there, then Mughal kingdom, and it is expanding into this area. Please look at the diagram that it is expanding into this area. So this area, suppose I'm writing this is Bijapur. It is expanding into this area. So generally that when Mughal won this Bijapur area, so entire area is under their control. Then the division of the land. So land is classified. So every area which is coming under the Mughal, there would be two type of the land. The land which would be available for offering and the land which would be the royal land. Then so the royal land and Jagirdari land, two types of land would be there. So Jagirdari land, so it is up to emperor that how much he will be keeping in the royal land and then the Jagirdari land. So means that royal land would be directly under the control of the emperor then, and the revenue which is going to generated from the royal land, it will directly go into the coffers of the emperor. But on the other hand, Jagirdari land, so in this area, that same way, some land will become the royal land, some land will become the Jagirdari land. Then, so this Jagirdari land, basically it will be again granted to the Jagirdars then, and they will be generating revenue, and you know the purpose then, that for providing the military services. Now what happened? The problem over here in Aurangzeb's regime, Aurangzeb, he captured this area, Bijapur and Golconda. I will not say that Marathwada area. He was never able to capture the entire Marathwada area. Though some areas he was able to capture, but Bijapur and Golconda. So the major part of the Deccan he controlled. So these two areas he controlled. Now, when he is controlling the Bijapur and Golconda, so what he did, that since this was a long run struggle, and when you look at the reign of the Aurangzeb, it was from 1658 to 1707. So I think that yesterday, day before yesterday also, that in very first class also I must have told that it was near about 49 years of rule. And this Bijapur Golconda episode, the fighting, it was continuing from 1670s. It took 17, 18 years. Finally, that this Bijapur and Golconda episode came to an end, and 1686 and 87 he controlled this area. So it was a long drawn struggle. Large amount of the money was spent by the Aurangzeb. So what he did, that Aurangzeb at this point of time, he believed, or what he did, that whenever you are acquiring an area, as I said to you, so there would be two divisions, royal land and jagirdari land. In both the areas, royal and jagirdari land. So what he did, that he increased the amount of the royal land. What is the general trend, उससे ज़्यादा कर दिया. जैसे मान लो, in old tradition or in old way of working of the Mughals, if 40% of land was kept as royal and 60% was offered in jagirdari, so what Aurangzeb did, ulta kar diya. Then 60% he kept as the royal land and only 40% he offered for the jagirdari. So it means that the 40% matlab less land, so majority of the land was declared as the royal land in both the areas, and the less areas were available for the jagirdar. So these jagirdars, they started to fight among themselves because the less land was available for themselves. So they were fighting, there was infighting which was happening between them, that who will control more area. Infighting started between them. It is just like one Hindi expression. I'll give you this Hindi expression. Hindi phrase, ek muhavra hai. And what is this Hindi muhavra? Ek anar sau bimar. This is Hindi muhavra or Hindi phrase. So meaning that there is a one pomegranate and there are many takers of this one. So obviously that the one who would be powerful, he will usurp it, he will have it. Then so this intense court factionalism, jagirdar, that intense factionalism among the jagirdars started, and that's what we call as the jagirdari crisis. So these jagirdars or the nobles, they started to fight among themselves then for grabbing more land. Moreover, these jagirs, though it is not like that jagir was not available, but as compared to the old tradition, less jagir was available. And these jagirs were very small in size and disproportionate also. So that is what we mean by the jagirdari crisis. I hope you must have understood. I have created a clear diagram so that you can understand, and beforehand I have told you that what was the tradition. So please write that, mention that the Mughal state has been described as war state in its core. War states in its core, full stop. Then you write, its vitality depended on military might of the Mughals. And when a war is beneficial to anybody, listen, that when we are fighting a war for a very short duration and we are attaining more benefits, that more such fruitful outcomes from them. So for example, let's suppose India is fighting a war with the any such country. Then so any such country, suppose that we fought war with the Pakistan, and then within a month we captured entire Punjab of the Pakistan. So this is very fruitful for India. Whatever expenses we did in this war, and now we have the Pakistan, that entire Punjab of the Pakistan area. So it is very fruitful for us, and in future we will reap huge benefits. But what if that India waged a fight with the Pakistan, and this fight went on for 20 years, and then finally we got Punjab. Then so in this 20-year fight you have spent so much of money, and what about in those 20 years that the people who are there in India, that their development is marred because the money is not available, because the fighting is going on. So whenever war is short, so it is beneficial, but when war becomes very long, so it is not beneficial. So That's what we are saying, that military might of the Mughals. So that vitality of the Mughals depended, because they were always, that at the time of the Akbar, at the time of the other rulers, that whenever they were fighting, so it was a short war, within short span of time it was completed, and that's how area expanded. So there were benefits. But when war is dragged, so benefits are going down. So that's what happened in the episode of the Golconda, Bijapur, and also the Maratha. So next part you write. The Jagirdari crisis involved emergence of too many Jagirdars. The Jagirdari crisis involved emergence of too many Jagirdars chasing for very few Jagirs, coupled with chasing for very few Jagirs, coupled with unequal sizes of Jagirs, comma, which triggered intense competition within nobility. Full stop. Moreover, Aurangzeb converted large part of Deccan land into Khalisa land, or royal land likh lo, Khalisa word mat likho, because it will lead to, so you will be understanding this. This is word for the royal land. So you write royal land. Then you write, and thus, after full stop, and thus, even expansion into Deccan, did not significantly increased the number of available Jagirs. So I hope you have understood this particular Jagirdari crisis. So let's move to the other reasons which were responsible. And first of all, in economic itself, there is one more reason. So basically what happened, that these Jagirdars, their income was impacted. So many a times that these Jagirdars, they tried to raise their income by that charging more on the common peasantry of India. So charging more on the common peasantry of India. So in many cases, that when they were charging more on the common peasantry of India, so these peasantry revolted. So these peasants revolted. So they cannot go with this activity also. So you write, attempts to increase revenue. This is the second economic reason that you are writing. So attempts to increase revenue by increasing tax rates, often resulted in peasant revolt, against the rulers. So after this one, the next reason that we are going to mention, socio-religious causes. Meanwhile, if you, Abhishek, if there are some good queries, so you can send. So socio-religious regions. Or causes, socio-religious causes of decline. Socio-religious causes of decline. So listen, that when it comes to the socio-religious causes of the decline, So first of all, it was Aurangzeb that who was so fanatic then, and it was Aurangzeb who was so fanatic, and he disaffected the majority population of India. So when we talk about the Aurangzeb's policy, listen, that Aurangzeb's policy, it was full with the religious divisive policy. So thank you, Abhishek. So it was full with the religious divisive policy, whereby what was there? So whereby he not only persecuted many Hindus, but at the same point of time, one of his activity was destructing the major symbols of the Hindu faith. And let me tell you what are all temples he destructed. I think that I have quoted it earlier also, but again I'm telling that he destructed Govindadev temple of the Mathura Vrindavan. He destructed Kesav Rai temple of the Mathura Vrindavan, Kashi Vishwanath temple of the Varanasi, and then Somnath temple, and many more. Then so these are the symbols. So he destructed. Moreover, irony is, I will tell you one example, Govindadev temple of the Mathura Vrindavan. If this temple would have been at this point of time, so it would have been one of the largest temples of India and one of the most unique architecture in India. You know, this temple, that with whose funding this temple was created? This temple was created with the funding provided by the Akbar, Govindadev temple of the Mathura Vrindavan. And Aurangzeb that destroyed this temple, and he even did not paid that due respect to his own generations, that it was the Akbar who funded the construction of this Govindadev temple. So he destroyed, so though the Kesav Rai temple is existing, Somnath is existing, Kashi Vishwanath is existing, but the original premise of the Govindadev, it was converted into a mosque, and now there is no more Govindadev temple. So Aurangzeb's religious divisive policy, moreover Aurangzeb was also known for banning many Hindu festivals. So his religious divisive policy was the reason that it disaffected many people, and particularly the majority population Hindus, and they started to preserve grudge against the Mughal rulers. Then so they started to preserve grudge against the Mughal rulers. So please write that in socio-religious causes, so you write, it is believed that the divisive religious policy of Aurangzeb was one of the most important factor of decline full stop, which included persecution of Hindus, forcible conversion, destruction of Hindu temples, and reimposition of jizya tax. So this tax was actually abolished by the Akbar. During the Mughal period, abolished by the Akbar. Jahangir followed his father's policy. Shah Jahan followed his father's policy, but Aurangzeb did not follow his father's policy. Then so he reimposed jizya tax on the masses. Then so this is what is about the religious divisive policy of the Aurangzeb. And then last but not the least, the this one, that military causes of the decline. So military causes of decline. So now listen, that when it comes to the military causes, so it is not related to Aurangzeb particularly. It is related to the later Mughal emperors. So till the time of the Aurangzeb, that military of the Mughals was quite good then, and we cannot say that it was technologically inferior. But the 18th century, when the later Mughal rule is starting, so the scenario is changing in the Indian subcontinent, and the Europeans are arriving in India, who who are better known for the modern type of the warfare, fighting the modern time of the warfare with modern arsenal, with modern kind of tools and equipments. So when these later Mughals at this point of time, already their wealth was declining, their power was declining, so they did not pay due attention to the development of the strong military. On the other hand, when they were faced with the superior opponent like the Britishers, they proved to be very inferior. For example, that we'll be talking about that Battle of Buxar, in which the combined army of all the that kind of native rulers of India, that Bengal, Awadh, and then Mughal Emperor Shah Alam, they, though the strength of the Bengal, that this army of the Grand Alliance, it was 70,000. On the other hand, British were only 7,000, but they easily defeated this very large army. And why so? Because of the this particular use of the modern technology in the military warfare. Then, so please write, mention, there was no fresh technological input. There was no fresh technological input in the Mughal army, during the 18th century. During the 18th century. During the 18th century, full stop. And thus, when faced with superior opponent, and thus when faced with superior opponent, that is Britishers, the Mughal army proved to be inferior. So these all are the reasons that we count for the decline of the Mughals from India, and this process was complete by 1857. Though that it was only, you can say that formality after 1800, that Mughal rule will come to an halt. So after 1800, it was just a formality which happened in 1857 revolt. So Mughal rule came to an end. So now is the time that we'll be beginning with the other topics. And what was this topic? What I said to you. So I said to you that we'll be beginning with the Anglo-French rivalry, the Carnatic Wars. Then we will be talking about the Bengal. We'll be talking about the Mysore, Maratha, and then last one would be the Punjab. So in today's class, before moving into the Carnatic, I just need to tell you that emergence of the regional power in 18th century India, and the two types of the power, the successor states and then the rebellious state. So this classification you need to understand. And what do we mean when time and again I quoted that these people, nobles of the Mughal, they created semi-independent autonomous territory for themselves. So this need to be explained, that what do we mean by semi-independent autonomous territory for themselves. Then, so let's begin with the emergence of the regional powers in the 18th century and the definition, the rebellious state and the successor states. So let's move to this part. So let me write. Emergence of, so you can write as a heading, emergence of regional powers in 18th century. Regional powers in 18th century. And there are two types of the state as far as, see, 17th century was about the Mughal rule. When you look at the Aurangzeb's regime, so Aurangzeb's regime by the time of the 1787, it was complete, and you can see that he was ruling from Kashmir to Madurai, and on one hand from the eastern side of that Bengal until Gujarat. So and also the Pakistan part. So and that the maximum territory under any Mughal ruler was under the Aurangzeb in the Indian subcontinent. But Soon after this, it started to break up. Then it started to break up, and many such important regional powers emerged. So there are two types of the powers in the 18th century, which we call, one is the successor state and another would be the rebellious state. Successor states and rebellious state. So let's look at the successor states. This is the very first one. So who we call as the successor states? So listen carefully, that the rulers of these successor states, then so the rulers that who founded these successor states of the Mughals, so the rulers of these successor states, they were erstwhile the members of the Mughal nobility. Then so they were the erstwhile members of the Mughal nobility, and after some point of time they went on to create semi-independent autonomous territory for themselves. Then so semi-independent autonomous territory for themselves. So what is semi-independent? I am not saying completely independent. So semi-independent means that, and autonomous word I have added. So autonomous means that they will not consult anybody in their decision making. So they are free to take their decisions, that what kind of policy would be affected. Suppose that I'm taking the example of the Bengal. So Bengal is free to take all of its decisions, then it doesn't need to consult the Mughal emperor, then, and it will be taking all its decision at its own. So that's how autonomous. And semi-independent means that it's a separate state, but why we are calling semi-independent? Because they are still accepting that India as an expression would be under the suzerainty or the suzerainty of the Mughal emperors. Means that they are accepting the nominal rule of the Mughals all over India, but otherwise in their own area they are autonomous rulers. Then so this is the meaning of the semi-independent autonomous territory. So then again the question arises, what is this accepting nominal rule of the Mughals? Then so there are some symbols of accepting nominal rule of the Mughals. For example, that in the Mughal world, that, and particularly in the Islamic world, so you know that in Islam that you have that Friday prayers. Then so at that point of time when monarchies were there, so these Friday prayers were always raised in the name of their emperor. Then so Friday prayers in Bengal, if Bengal is getting created as a successor state, so the people in the Bengal, when they raised the Friday prayers, so it was raised in the name of the Mughal emperor. Then so that is the nominal, that accepting the nominal rule of the Mughals. Then another expression of the accepting nominal rule, that Bengal is free. That Bengal is free, they are creating their own coins, currency, but again they are keeping the name of the Mughal emperor in their currency or their coins. Then so printing currency with the name of the Mughal emperor. Done. And moreover, one more such symbol of the accepting nominal rule, that they will be giving him annual presents. Then so some kind of tribute annually they will be giving to the Mughal emperor. Then so annual tribute would be given to him. And one more thing, that whenever Mughal emperor is in need of them, so he can sought their help, that dekho koi war karne aa gaya. For example, let me tell you that when this person Nadir Shah of Persia in 1739, he invaded Delhi. So till this point of time, Hyderabad is created. Then Hyderabad was created in 1724. But this Hyderabad person, Nizam al-Mulk Asaf Jah, he came to the rescue of the Mughal emperor. He fought in this battle of Karnal from the side of the Mughal emperor. So this is also a symbol of the accepting the nominal rule of the Mughals. Then so this is what is the successor state, and in this successor states, which all are the examples, so Bengal, Hyderabad, Awadh and Carnatic are the example of the successor states. So please write successor state, heading करके लिख लेना, successor states of the Mughal, successor states of the Mughal. So you write, the rulers of these states the rulers of these states were erstwhile members of Mughal nobility. Were erstwhile members of Mughal nobility. Then full stop. Mughal nobility. They went on to carve out their own autonomous states. Their own autonomous states. They went on to carve out their own autonomous semi-independent states. Their own autonomous semi-independent states. But they respected the nominal rule of Mughals. They respected the nominal rule of Mughals. They respected the nominal rule of Mughals. For example, Friday prayers, were raised in the name of Mughal monarch. Friday prayers were raised in the name of Mughal monarch, comma. Friday prayers were raised in the name of Mughal monarch, comma. Coins were minted with the name of Mughal emperor. Coins were minted with the name of Mughal emperor, and also annual tribute was paid to him. So this is what is the definition of about the successor states. You write example. So example of these states. So you write Awadh, Bengal, Hyderabad, Carnatic. Awadh, Bengal, Hyderabad, Carnatic. Hyderabad, Carnatic. Done. So after this, the last topic, and so this one. So rebellious states of the Mughal. Not of Mughal, rebellious states. So rebellious states you write. So what is this rebellious states? Try to understand. So these rebellious states of the Mughal, particularly, that they are the states like the Marathwada, Punjab, and then Mysore, which we'll be mentioning in very detail. So these states where what happened, that there was already a dynasty, that original dynasty from the long time over here. They were the rulers of this area. But what Aurangzeb did, that Aurangzeb, in process of expansion, he controlled some of their areas. For example, in Maratha areas, he controlled some of the Maratha area, or annexed some of the Maratha area. He also annexed some of the Mysore area, and he also annexed Punjab area. So these areas were controlled by the, when the Aurangzeb was alive, so he controlled one way or other way, controlled these areas. But what happened, that after the death of the Aurangzeb, the original rulers of this area, or original families who were ruling these areas, they reasserted their political power and re-established their autonomous rule. So earlier they were autonomous and independent, and for some point of time they were controlled by the Aurangzeb, and after the death of the Aurangzeb, again they became fully independent. So here I will not be calling semi-independent, they are fully independent autonomous states, and moreover, they are not the part of the Mughal nobility. So Shivaji is not the part of the Mughal nobility. Hyder Ali was not the part of the Mughal nobility. Maharaja Ranjit Singh was not the part of the Mughal nobility. Then, so this is the difference. So please write. Some of these areas were brought under Mughal rule. Some of these areas were brought under Mughal rule during the regime of Aurangzeb. During the regime of Aurangzeb. After the death of Aurangzeb, Mughal power, after the death of Aurangzeb, Mughal power started to weaken. Mughal power started to weaken, and rulers from this area asserted their autonomy. Full stop. asserted their autonomy. Further, these rulers were not part of the Mughal nobility. Further, these rulers were not part of the Mughal nobility, and and they did not accepted nominal rule of Mughals. They did not accepted nominal rule of Mughals. They did not accepted nominal rule of Mughals. So, example you write Punjab, Maratha and Hyderabad. Oh, sorry, Punjab, Maratha and Mysore. Punjab, Maratha and Mysore. So these are the examples. So this is about the successor states and the rebellious states of the Mughals. And next class. So Abhishek, if there is there any query, so I will address. Otherwise, I will wind up the class. So let me tell you that next week. So by this time I have the schedule. Give me just 30 seconds so that I can tell you that if I have a class in your batch or not next week. So just give me 30 seconds. So yours is RB5. No, I don't have any class in next week in your batch. So maybe next to next week. That I think that next to next week. So whenever we'll be meeting. So next to next week we'll be starting with the Anglo-French rivalry and Carnatic. So it will be completed in that particular class only, and then after that we'll be moving to the Bengal. So I'm telling you sequence for the 4 or 5 classes. So then Bengal. After the Bengal, we'll be moving to the Mysore, then Marathwada, and last would be the Punjab. So there is a one question. Let me see this question. So please be with me. So, sir, was there harm in giving reckless Jagir on who was profited from the revenue earned from these Jagirs, the king or the Jagirdars? So reckless Jagirs, who was giving? I think that you are talking about the Bahadur Shah. So yes, obviously there is a harm. Why not? That you are giving it, that's how you are increasing the number of the Jagirdars. When you are giving it Jagirs to the so many people, so you are increasing that unnecessarily. You are increasing the number of the Jagirdars. Then and they will infight with each other. So that is the one reason that you are seeing over here, that the expression which I said, that large number of Jagirdars and very few Jagirs. It is just like that when we say that there is a one person and he has 5 sons. What if he would have 2 sons, so the land would have been divided among the 2, but he has 5 sons. Land will, small portions would be there, and there would be so much of fight between the sons. Then, so this is the one reason. Then, and who was profited from the revenue from these Jagirs? So obviously when the Jagir would be big, so profit would be going into the coffers of the Jagirdars. Both were profiting. If the Jagirs, that both were profiting, see that what the Mughal emperor will get from the Jagirdars, that he is getting the military services. Then, so military services. But on the other hand, that it's up to the Jagirdar that how come he is increasing his revenue from the Jagirs. Then Abhishek, so other question has been asked. So this question, first question was Priyanka's question. So now next question, is the successor state who take decision regarding economical or other division? Yes, successor states, they took all the decisions. They took all the decisions. There no need to discuss to the Mughal emperor. Suppose that any tax rate is there, any such kind of that grant is there. They don't need to consult the Mughal emperor. Then so even they are appointing somebody to the important position, they don't need to consult Mughal emperor. Only in the terms which I mentioned, they will be respecting the Mughal emperor. Then so this is all about the today's class. And so next week I don't have class, so I can't do anything about this. But next week class, next week we'll be meeting, and then we'll be continuing with the said topics. So thank you for today, and thank you for listening so patiently. And thank you, Abhishek.